Welcome to RecLess, a podcast making people smarter and more knowledgeable about parks and recreation. Your hosts are Shane Mize, Jay Tryon, and Tom Venniro, three career-long friends from around the country, bringing their own unique and sometimes entertaining perspectives with a surprise guest each episode. This is RecLess.
Okay, welcome to the fourth episode of RecLess, a podcast where we're focusing on the industry of park and rec through three close friends that are scattered throughout the country. My name is Jay Tryon. I am your host today, and as always, we are also joined with Shane Mize and Tom Venniro. What is going on, guys?
What's up?
Hey guys, I'm just letting you know I might have to hop off today a little early. So if that's the case, I'll just give you a little signal, but glad to be here.
Don't get your feelings hurt if it's the best podcast ever when you hop off.
My replacement might be the guest today. Who knows?
Exactly. If we get the most listeners and likes for this one,
That's
then
right.
we might have to make some changes.
That's right.
Well, that's awesome. What else is new in your world? It's almost end of August, and what's been the highlight of the summer so far for you guys?
I'll go first. It's been a summer of adversity for us. It's one of those parables that if you ask for a tougher staff, the Lord gives you a lot of shit to go through, and it has felt like we have gone through a lot here with a lot of construction and projects and how that affected some of our other camps and experiences. So it's through. We made it. The kids are going back to school next week, and so I'm excited about that. And we have a little group, Tom, Jay, myself, and about 10 or 12 other park and rec professionals are all really close. And we had a Zoom call last night that went for a long time. It was great to catch up. And we don't do that as often as we should. So that was a good moment as well.
Yeah, it's been a smooth summer for us, at least in the park and rec side of things. So I don't really want to say much more than that because you never want to jinx anything. Very, very minor, the typical here and there issues that come up. But personally, it's been an awesome summer. My daughter turned 1 in May. That kind of kicked things off. We took a vacation, as we talked about a few episodes ago, to Disney World with a 1 and 3-year-old. That went as well as can be, and my son turned 3 today. So
Right.
Today's his 3rd birthday.
Happy birthday, Jack.
Yes.
Happy birthday, my man.
Yes. Yeah.
I will send him a Bills jersey.
It came up again. How do you do this? I really was hoping we would go an episode without it.
I think he would love that.
One of my buddies that I work with, Jay, are you familiar with the Little People, the Bills Little People?
Yeah, they came out at Wegmans today. I saw some folks, some friends of mine going shopping first thing in the morning.
Yeah, why wouldn't you know that? Yeah, 6 a.m. It's like back in the day, well, and this is dating ourselves a little bit, but you all remember the Beanie Baby craze, right?
Oh, yeah.
People waiting in line. For whatever reason, that's what that's like around here, even though they resurface about a month later and they're not even hard to find. So, yeah, that was his joke today, that he was at the store, he picked him up, and that'll be Jack's birthday present. So I think I'm screwed either way. People are going to be pushing the bills on my son.
That's my boy. I like him.
I got Jack some candy and some dirty books. So I'm already doing a good job.
He's not lying.
So he is really going to have some fun uncles to look forward to getting presents from.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, hey, let's get started. I am excited about today's guest, and I'll give you some hints here, and we'll see if you guys were able to guess it last time. We'll see if it happens again. So our guest today is someone that we all know, no one has directly worked with. They are a previous recipient of the American Academy Extern Award in 2021. They were also an NRPA Young Professional Scholarship winner. They also were a recipient of the Robert Crawford Award. So have some inner ties with, other things that y'all have both been able to accomplish in your careers. And this person is currently a member of the Capra Commission.
I think
that narrows it down a little bit more. I'm not sure how many names on there you can list or think of.
The Robert Crawford narrows it down for me. I mean, that's a very prestigious award that, and a lot of people don't know, we almost named this show 2 Robert Crawford Award winners and some dude from North Carolina, but it's such a long title that we didn't, but
That would have been fitting.
I think I know who it is.
Okay, so this person also does present at a variety of sessions, whether it's national or on a state level. I've seen them present at my conference in North Carolina, as well as other conferences, and they've done a phenomenal job.
Tom, I think their last name could resemble a fish.
I know where you're going with that. I'm not sure if Tom does.
I feel like this should.
I don't know if I'm right or not, but he was a recent Crawford Award winner.
Okay, so we'll keep going. We're on the right path here. Today's guest resides in the state of Georgia. So, Tom, you might know it by now. Shane is correct.
Okay.
Today's guest is the Park and Rec Director for Douglasville, Georgia. And today we are joined by Chris Bass. So, Chris,
Nice.
welcome to the show.
Hey, Chris.
What's going on, guys? How's it going?
Hey, how you doing?
It's going. And now of course the fish comment makes a whole lot more sense.
Hey, I know a guy named Chris Trout.
There you go.
Yeah. He and Mike, yeah.
Right.
That would have been really funny if there was another Park and Rec professional that's name did resemble a fish and Shane was off by the fish.
Right.
Especially if this other person lives in Georgia. That would have been even better.
I didn't know for sure until the Crawford Award winner. There's not many of those, so I felt like I was on pretty good ground at that point.
Yeah.
Well, Chris,
awesome.
This is great to have you. Let me kick it off just because I'm not 100% sure something popped up. So I do want to ask at least one question and hopefully be able to stick around through it. But we worked together actually directly through TEDx College Park Part 2, which was the virtual version of it. And I'm like blanking on the year, but that was really a great experience. Chris is a worker, and he had a very difficult job on that team, but he did everything, man. He made it work, and we put on a really great show. So, Chris, tell us a little bit about what you're working on now. What's going on in Chris's world.
Yeah, look, going back to that TEDx, those were some long nights. those 10 p.m. meetings. But look, it's definitely prepared me for a lot. But right now in Douglasville, man, we got a lot of dirt moving. We have so many capital projects, and I tell you, before the summer started, I was feeling really great about everything. But then when you put summer camp and all the other activities right in the middle of it, man, I'm exhausted. Was hearing y'all talk about, summer and getting through it. And I'm telling you, I am glad that summer is over for us. So, yeah, we got some big capital projects. We're building a new gymnasium, a new swimming pool, new senior center, new football stadium. We
Awesome.
are doing some other smaller capital projects, doing some land acquisition. So we got a lot going on and just trying to stay above float. So, yep, good stuff.
I remember we passed a bond in 2020, and I was in Pflugerville. I actually had passed a bond in Hutto in 2019 as the director in Hutto, a $50 million bond, and then moved to Pflugerville before I could really act on it. But then we passed a $100 million parks bond in Pflugerville, and Rick Atkins, who Capra Academy member, all the things in our industry, gold medal award winner, I believe. He said that was the easy part. Passing the bond was the easy part. It is all uphill, and I have felt every step in some of these capital projects and how they, when I was referencing what we were going through earlier, it's a lot of bond and capital projects, and that in and of itself is at times taxing. But when you have programs and events that happen in those parks, it pushes out or somehow impacts those programs and events, and it has been at times brutal to get through the mental gymnastics it takes to try to make these things work. So let me ask you a question, Chris. I get on here, I like to almost ask interview questions like I was interviewing you for a job. And so one I haven't asked yet, so you'll be the first that'll get it in this capacity, is what is something that you do well in our industry that others admire about you?
I think one of the things that I do, I feel well, is listen because so many times we want to brag about what we do when we're talking to different people, but I am a really good active listener. I don't listen to respond. I listen to learn so that I can continue to grow and learn myself about this great field we work in, and just really network intentionally. And we use that word so many times, networking, but what is true networking? It's really understanding and gaining understanding of what people do, and building with them and growing with them, and just really being able to build relationships to lean on folks. So on a personal and professional level. So I think that's one of the things I've been able to do that has really helped me. When I get to conference, I don't really talk to the people back in Georgia a whole lot when we get to Dallas or wherever we're at. I try to talk to some folks who I don't really know. And one of the other things too, I'll just share that has really helped me navigate through this profession is learning what works within the different groups that I roll in. We have so many different professional groups. There's YPN, there's Ethnic Minority Society, then we got CAPRA, and so many different groups of people. Getting in and not always showing that I'm the smartest person in the room has really helped me. Although I do have strong attributes that I bring to the table, it's really recognizing that there are other people here who are just as knowledgeable as I am. So I can sit back and, like I say, active listen and learn from those folks. So I think that's what's helped me in my career.
I think that's an awesome answer that I don't think you would get from a lot of people. And maybe they do it. I'm not saying that most people don't do it, but I think if I'm like thinking about some of the best supervisors or managers or directors that I've met and known across the years, it's those folks that like literally, when you're having a conversation with them, they're listening. Because there's nothing more frustrating, and everyone's gone through this, when like you're trying to talk to someone and they're busy on their phone, they're busy looking at email, they're busy thinking about something else, and you may be coming to them with something very serious, they're very time sensitive, but they're not giving you the proper time, and it makes you not want to go to that person again, or share things that you need to. But if you have someone that's fully invested in that conversation and you're eyes wide right to them, that's special, and that's really important. So that's an awesome answer that I'd be curious, like if we asked that to 50 people in the field that we know, like how many would actually answer that. And it's not to say they don't do it, but it's probably not their first answer that comes to their head.
Yeah, definitely. Someone once asked me, how have you gotten where you are? And I tell them, a lot of times we talk about all our great supervisors. I can tell you I've learned more from my bad supervisors, and
yes,
most of those bad supervisors were not active listeners. They did not really understand and comprehend as we were communicating things. So that's one of the things I said I would never do. I want to make sure I'm actively listening and understanding where people are coming from. So.
Yeah.
I thought intentional networking was interesting too in that. I think that would be a lost art, maybe something that could be taught at at some sort of program session or a proposal, because you see people networking for just the sake of networking. First of all, intentionality in and of itself is something I think we lose a lot of times, not just in our profession, just in society today. I think there's a lot of distractions, and but saying I'm gonna not go to this session or not go to this social or not go out with this group because I'm intentionally trying to network myself in some capacity with this other group. That's something I don't think a lot of, at least our younger professionals, know how to do very well. Very interesting. And I don't think our seasoned professionals know how to do it very well. We just get to a point where we're less about intentionality and more about routine. We just go and talk to the same people we've always talked to because that's a comfort or whatever. But I think it's really important as a young professional to probably be pretty intentional. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah. So, it's funny what Chris mentioned about in the intentional networking about, I'm not necessarily out there with my Georgia people, right? That happens a lot when either, even at just a state conference, so that's a great lesson for your state conferences. We go a lot of the times with the people that are from maybe our county or whatever, our agency. And I don't want people to think that I don't want to be around you. It's just I have the opportunity to be around you all of the time, 200 other days of the year, as opposed to the 3 days I'm at this state conference or 4 days at a national conference where I get to meet and talk to other people doing what we do from around wherever it is that it is. So, that's something that I would encourage for people to just branch out. And you said it, Shane, the comfort zone. I think people tend to stay in that comfort zone, but it's important to get out of it every once in a while because there's a lot to offer from other people out there.
A lot of people get their feelings hurt if you're with them, either you are employees together and you go to a state, or you're at a state your state colleagues and you go to a national conference. And I think that's where that word intentionality versus routine or comfort really comes in. That's that sliding scale, right, between one side or the other.
Yeah, and then too, you got people who you haven't seen in a year.
Yeah,
you want to network with too, so and talk to and just relate to and just share things, and so it's okay. It's all right if y'all miss me for 3 or 4 days.
I challenge them, meet some new folks themselves, learn some new ideas, new programs, and let's come back together when we get back in the state of Georgia, and then we'll share ideas, and then we'll talk about what we learned, because we can do that once we see each other again. Thinking about this group right here, the 4 of us, obviously we all have history of being involved in the YPN, Young Professional Network, the last 10 or 15 years. In some capacity, 1 or 2 or 3 of us, or all 4 of us, might have been involved at the same time. Chris, how did involvement with young professionals help you grow and get you to where you are today?
Talking and networking with other young professionals has definitely helped me. But going back to the point I made earlier, it was beyond just the young professionals. It was it was people who I met through other young professionals. So Michael Beanstein, for example, who's another young professional, he introduced me to Elizabeth Kelsler out of Illinois, who is a mentor of mine now, and he shared his personal experiences with her, and we got a chance to grow together. So I think that right there, recognizing that we have people that we can lean on, regardless of if Michael might not have had the advice that I needed, but he knew how to connect me to someone who did. So it's important for us to have that network, and be someone who we can call or lean on if there are some challenges we're going through, because there are some stereotypes about young professionals in the field. And a lot of times, when we are growing in our careers, if we're a department head or division lead, you are usually surrounded by a lot of folks that are older than us, and it can be trying sometimes. So you want to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody. I got several people around my age who I can pick up and call when I'm going through the struggle of being a director. I'm still learning. I don't know everything about being a director, but at least I got people I know I can call who've gone through it at a young age. Jay, you were a director at a young age. Tom, you're director. All you all have been in this capacity at a young age. So it's challenging, and sometimes those older, more seasoned folks in our profession don't really understand, because we are leading in a different time from when they were leading, so I think that has definitely helped encourage me to want to keep going, because hearing that other people are experiencing some of the same challenges that I'm experiencing always is helpful for me to want to keep going.
Chris, question for you. You just brought something. I don't mean to totally shift gears, kind of related to that. I was talking with Chris Nunes, one of our previous guests. So we've got 2 Chris's already in 4 weeks. But I know that, Chris and I were talking about some sessions, and one of them that came up was managing with multi-generational, facilities or Parks and Rec teams, right? So you just mentioned that. I know that when I came into my position, that was one of the biggest challenges. But when I came into that position, that was 10 years ago. So 10 years removed, societal needs are completely different. Technology is completely different. Everything is. So tell us a little bit about that. You mentioned the challenging. How do you deal with being a young director who's come into that position, and you're working with all different types of generations with everything else that's going on around us right now?
Yeah, I'll tell you, when I first stepped into this role, I was appointed the night I flew out to go to Nashville, and I was talking when I got to Nashville. I was talking to my maintenance manager, who I went from being his peer to now his supervisor, and we were talking, and I told him, I said, I'm gonna be honest with you. His name Andy. I said, Andy, I don't know nothing about park maintenance, man. I said, I'm gonna be honest with you. That's a big reservation of mine, taking this job. And this is after I've been appointed. And I think having that conversation with him really set the tone for us to have a great relationship, because he probably thought that I was gonna come in thinking I know everything there is about park maintenance, and here he is with a degree in agronomy, and I'm gonna come in and tell him how to do his job. But me sharing that with him has helped us build our relationship. That's in terms of supervising folks and managing a team of individuals older than me. Now, there's so much focus on millennials, but we don't have to worry about the millennials. There's a whole nother generation that's coming in the workforce. And that group right there is the one that we're still trying to navigate with, because we literally have 4 different generations in the workplace. And that newer generation, that earn them and burn them, don't really have that passion for parks and recreation, is where we see most of our challenges. But they do have some things they can really bring to the table. Great example. We're gold medal finalists this year.
Congrats.
Yes, very nice.
Thanks. Great achievement. We've been trying for the longest. I brought in 2 of this newer generation, I get a mix of Gen Z. I believe it is Gen Z, Gen XZ, or whatever. This newer generation. Brought two of our professionals in who represent this particular group, and I showed them our application and what we had been submitting. She was, oh no, this doesn't work. They came together, they rewrote our whole application, and here's something we've been trying for 4 years, completely changed, because they have the technology. They're using things like Chat GPT to change, to tell our story and things like that. So it's work. We all have conversations and we understand where we're coming from. And again, going back to the active listening, not dismissing any of their suggestions has really helped us.
You tell that story about Andy and not knowing the first thing about park maintenance, and it reminded me of the story. I had a conversation once years ago. This was probably, I want to say 10 plus years ago, with Tom O'Rourke. And at the time, Tom was the director of Charleston County in South Carolina. And someone asked him like a similar question. And he said, I don't know everything about aquatics. I don't know everything about dog parks. I don't know everything about playgrounds, but I know how to manage people, and I know how to hire the right people.
Yeah.
And that, like, when you get to this point, like, that's really what matters. Like, I don't expect anyone to really know every single detail about park maintenance or programming or special events or aquatics or nature, because it's like, that's why you have managers. That's why you have a team, but you just got to be able to manage the people and be able to hire the right people.
Yep. To your point, I was sharing with my city manager, I've changed my hiring strategies.
Okay.
I no longer hire off the resume. Now, with that being said, there are certain credentials that you need to get certain jobs. We get that. But now it's about how well do you fit in the culture of our department. That's first and foremost. I know some credentialed folks who have came through and interviewed, and I mean, really good on paper, but just did not fit well into our culture. Now that we've changed that, and going back to Tom's point, we recognize those different generations, how well people fit in. That has shifted our atmosphere, that in the office, and just the culture throughout our entire department, and that's what's been working for us. Most of our
Awesome.
division managers are between 30 and 35, with the exception of Andy. But we lean on him, and we don't dismiss him, and he recognizes that we have something to bring, and it just really helps with the culture of our department.
So last night we were having that group chat, and Kevin Woody, friend of all of ours, I'm sure, in Seattle, Washington area, is a rec manager out there in Auburn, Washington. He was talking about leadership and how he was wanting to do some sort of leadership survey. And I said at one point, it is not about finding I have 48 full-time staff. It's not about finding the best 48 full-time staff in this industry, because that in and of itself is pretty, subjective in some ways of how what we're looking for, right? But it's about finding 48 people that can work under me.
Mhm.
And the leadership structure that I am creating that is supported by city manager's office and ultimately council. And so because I need people to fill in the weaknesses I have, right? And so I think it's funny you brought up a good point about not knowing a lot about park ops. Unlike some other, unlike the library system, right? I think, when you matriculate through the library department, you probably know all the aspects of being a librarian. I don't want to marginalize what they do, but it's nonfiction books and fiction books and a couple of outreach programs to the community, and that's probably 80% of what they're doing in some capacity. But you can come through this field as a recreational person, and all of a sudden you're a director and you're worrying about mowing cycles, or you could get like myself. I got 18 years into this field before I ever had to worry about a body of water. And so there are, we can be pretty siloed as an industry. You can be an aquatic professional and a really good one who promotes from like a lifeguard to a pool manager to aquatic specialist to some sort of aquatic manager. And you can get 15 years into a field before you ever knew, much about athletics, for example. And so it definitely, to your point, in Parks and Rec specifically, I don't think you can find someone that's well vast in everything, even a seasoned director. You've got to have someone that you trust that can work under you in whatever system you have.
Key word, trust.
Yeah, trust is a big one.
Absolutely.
So it's all about just people, dealing with people and being a people person, and I'm in a similar boat. I went through that same story, Chris, and the individual who was our park foreman had much more experience than I when I came in. Fast forward, got through that relationship and built a foundation with that individual. But now that we have moved forward and that individual's retired, the one that we have now is a mechanic. He can do electric work. None of which I can do. Like not even close. Like I don't even want to even learn how to do that for my own house, let alone for work, right? But I trust that person and they trust me to carry out what their vision is based on our mission. So it's definitely it's an interesting aspect of what we do. There's a lot of that, and Shane, you hit it right on the head.
Autonomy is an interesting aspect of our industry, because I think first of all, a lot of us probably lead with staff having a great deal of autonomy, but I almost don't think you could be a full micromanager in our industry. I sure can in my work. Like I've got facilities that open up at 5 a.m. Tom and Jay text me. I'm nowhere near awake at 5 a.m. when they start texting. And I've got parks that don't close and that we're shutting gates at 11 o'clock at night. And I've got facilities that are open 7 days a week. And I've got park systems that are open 365 days out of the year. And so I can't micromanage every single one of these folks, and neither can their employees. Like it's not like on down the line between my assistant director and their superintendent and their manager, someone could micromanage, because even if you got down to the aquatic manager, that pool's open 6 days a week, 1 day for maintenance, it's closed. For us, we've got outdoor pools in Texas. So they're, even if they weren't heated, they would go for a long time, but we have heated pools, so they go year round. And so, you wouldn't expect the person over facilities to be over the pool manager, making sure we opened at 5 a.m. At some point, you have to trust that 18-year-old kid that we have hired to be the pool manager to open up the facility. So the swim team can go out there and get their practice in, so then they can shower and get to class at 8 a.m., get there and open the facility. It's much different, the level of autonomy that you have to have and feel comfortable with as a manager than it would be for the director of IT potentially, or finance director, who probably all have 8 to 5, can look out and cast over their office and see potentially all their employees right there. They probably see when their employees get there, probably see when their employees leave. It's a totally different industry. And in that, you have to find a leadership style that not only you're comfortable with, but suits the industry. Because I think you can try, but I don't think you can micromanage in this industry.
No, and I would find it hard pressed to find people that want to be micromanaged. So even if that was a trait of yours and it was to any degree successful, it's just usually not the form of supervision that staff wants. especially with the freedom that you want your staff to have when it comes to programming and activities. It's, you want to empower them. You want them to make decisions. And if they're not given that, then typically that's when I've seen them want to walk out the door.
So I got a question for you, Chris. Because the industry is so vast, right? And, we go back to talking about public works. Like, I don't think you give those guys a lot of autonomy. In fact, there's probably a lot of standards. They literally have to put the concrete or the sidewalk, or they have to build the road exactly to the specs, right? But my camp will look different than your camp, and that both of our camps will look different than Tom's camp and Jay's camp, right? So there's so much freedom in our field. You have these creative gen whatevers that are coming up, but their pathway to being a young professional and ultimately being a professional in this field is different than our pathway was. And so when they come to you and say, hey, what's your advice? It can't be the advice you would have given even younger Chris, because it wouldn't work now. So how do you, what advice can you give to the younger generation, and how do you make it timely and relevant to the path they're going through in what the industry looks like right now?
Yeah, we got, like I was mentioning earlier, we have a few in some key roles in our department. And I was talking with another, one of my division managers who's my age, another millennial. And we've just, she's been having a hard time with one of their particular employees. And I told her, I was reading a book called Winning Friends, How to Influence People and Win Friends. It's a really good book. Dale Carnegie. And he mentions in the book, you can't measure someone by the yards of our own years. And to your point, I think that's what happens. And not really understanding that they're coming up in different times. They have this whole, and I hate to put them in a group, but there's this instant gratification, whereas, we kind of recognize we need to climb up the chain. We need to do certain things and always say yes when asked. That's not the case with this particular group. So it's finding what it is that encourages them or want them, where they want to go first, and what do they think their route is to get to where they want to go, and figuring out how to somehow feed them and give them what they need without showing our biases of, well, we didn't have that route when we were coming up. I tell you what, going back to conference, to go to a national conference as in the agencies I work, as a frontline employee, that's unheard of. But now they have expectations of that professional development. So how can we get them that recognize we can't break the bank and send everybody to a national conference or even a state conference at times? What can we do? How can we empower them? And I think having a sense of responsibility is that, and also finding where can we bend. I think sometimes we can be so set in our ways in terms of this is the route to get to certain things, or things have been done this way. And we always say as millennials, well, we fight the whole it's been done that way, but it's always been done that way. But we can tend to be like that sometimes too and not realize it. So finding where we can bend a little to accommodate their needs. That's this younger generation coming up. We were debating on how to offer particular events that we've had in the past, and some of our young professionals, when I say young, I'm talking about 23, 24, just out of college. They came up and they said, no, we want to change that. All right. If they do change it, are we going to experience some drastic response from the community? And if not, let them change it, to give them that sense of pride and that sense of belonging. And even though they probably realize that, or don't realize that it's a mistake, you gotta let them see it on their own, So that finding that balance of letting them swim and figuring it out versus knowing when to jump in and save them. So,
yeah, that's an interesting take on that too. And Shane, you said something last night that kind of feeds into this a little bit. So just changing something to change something, right? I've dealt with that. I think we all have. We've seen that. And that's really not the right reason to do it, right? There's got to be some kind of backbone to it, and you hope that the outcome obviously is for the benefit of whatever it is, the program or the facility. Now, Shane, you mentioned before, just from your management style, it was last night, you said you're going to let them do it, but if you tell them that I'm not sure this is a great idea, and it doesn't necessarily go that way, it goes wrong, we should say, tell this group here, or tell our listeners kind of your take on that as a manager.
Yeah, so I lead with a great deal of autonomy, and even more so than I think you find most comfort levels in our industry. I couldn't tell you right now who's at work today and who isn't. Not worried about it. My AD, Kelsey Hayden, she's been here with me for, I guess, 6 or 8 months now, and was an Academy award winner, or external award winner from the Academy one year, and I think she won the fellowship once. Young professional working through the field as well, had previously been Leander, New Braunfels. And my first week, she's my assistant director. She comes in like on Wednesday. She goes, I think I'm going to leave a little early if that's okay with you. And I told her, never ask me to leave again. You're the assistant director of this fucking department. Leave when you want to leave. Stay as long as you want to stay. Leave when you want to leave. Lead when you want to lead. Just be there when I call on you. I expect you to respond, and I expect you to hit the mark. And so that bleeds on down. So when I have an incredible, passionate young professional that wants to do a passion project, and they want to do, I won't say something about this agency, so I'll say one about a previous agency. I had a young professional that wanted to do like a health workout, 1 hour a week, lunch, noon, and we would lead the employees through a fitness program. And they did it every Friday, and it was going great. I mean, we had tons of people in the gym taking this free employee hour. And so then she wanted to do it every day. And I said, hey, just because you're doing it every day doesn't mean it's going to go well. In fact, the idea that they can schedule it for Friday, then they know it's important. If they could miss it on a Tuesday and catch it on a Wednesday, it's going to be, less of something that they have to schedule and plan for. But ultimately they wanted to do it 5 days a week, and I let them, and it died. Went from having 60 plus people in there every day working out on a Friday to it didn't have two or three people in the gym during the lunch. And we just couldn't justify kicking people out of the gym for this employee workout program that had 2 people showing up for a Zumba or whatever. And, it's one of those things that with a great deal of autonomy comes a great deal of accountability, at least for me. So if you come in and say, I want to do a zip line over the road, my job is to try to make that work. I don't like to get to no with people. I like to get to yes. Everything I'm trying to do with my staff is getting to a yes. So if they say, Shane, I want to put a zip line across Main Street, I'm like, okay, what does that look like? Have we talked to legal? What's the cost? What are we going to charge? Let's figure out what it takes to get to yes. Legal may say no. City council may say no. I'm trying to be a good leader, be supportive, and get to yes. But if that doesn't work, in the process I say, I don't think this is a good idea because blank, blank, and blank, and it becomes an utter failure, we're having a conversation about it. Because the things I pointed out, you maybe took to heart, or you didn't take them to heart. You didn't reconcile them with your ambition and your drive. And ultimately it did the thing I told you it was going to do. And with that great deal of autonomy I just gave you, now there's going to be some accountability, and we're going to talk about, I like staffs that make new mistakes. I don't want to make old mistakes. And so we're going to talk about what I think went right and wrong. So the next zip line is going to work, or we're not going to do it. You know what I mean? And so that's just how I've led. And it's not for everyone. And there have been times that it's been obvious pretty quick to some that they don't like how I lead. And that's okay, because they can go find someone that leads in a way that they feel nourished or supported or coddled or whatever they're looking for. It's just not how I do it.
Yeah. You made an interesting point about sometimes, you let them try it out, or sometimes you got to step in and say no. Talking to one of my other department heads yesterday, and she was saying, well, I'm having an issue with an employee, and he's upset because I told him no. And he asked me, well, why? And I said, well, I don't have to tell you why. I said, no, you do. You need to tell them why, because a lot of times people think you're just making the decisions and telling them no just because you want to tell them no. Explain to them why. That has really helped. There have been some times where, I like how you call it passion projects. Well, we've had some people to be really passionate about some projects that just absolutely didn't make sense at all, or tried to change something that didn't make sense at all. And we had to tell them no. But with that no, explaining why you can't do it this way or why it's been set up this particular way. And I think that really helps them understand and get buy-in and get that sense of feeling that their ideas matter, but realistically, I've been in this field for a while and I want you to learn from the mistakes that I made.
What I have found in my conversations with them is I don't have to tell them no if we have brainstorming sessions, if we have discussions, and if we ultimately go through the process of launching that. And I'm honestly I'm trying to get to a yes, but I have concerns and I ask questions and I say, what are you going to do here and who's here? And, how many staff is this going to need and what's the cost? I didn't say no, but they figured out the no is the right answer. And it's the ones that push through and say, Shane, I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to will this to happen, that I'm just like, okay, let's fucking figure it out, but we're having a conversation about it if it doesn't go well, and I think that's fair, and that's how I'd want to be led.
So that's interesting. And I want to actually go and talk about the other side of this. Shane, you mentioned with autonomy comes great accountability. So that works not just downward, that works upward. For me, I've been very, very fortunate in the last 10 years. And before that, before you're in a director's role, at least I believe you have, my experience, limited experiences with your elected officials. And there's almost this, and Shane, we've talked about this before. Some days I go back and say, I'll be your assistant director any day because I'm not dealing upwards. Mm-hmm. That said, I feel like there's been some success. I've had a great run in the 10 years, and a lot of that comes from the fact that they've given me great autonomy and they've had that trust in me. And obviously that there's a reason for that, right? So for me, it's just been solid communication, making sure that they are aware of what they need to be aware of, not too much, not too little. And there's a lot more that goes in that. Establishing relationships. We talked about that in not just networking with those who are from other agencies, but within our own agency, those elected officials and the people they know, their families. So establishing a relationship with your elected officials come and go. So Chris, you're at an even younger age than we are, right? And so that's something that now you've been really thrust into, working with your elected officials. How has that transition gone for you? What are some of your tips and tricks for people as you navigate that world? And I've talked about this with some other people. This could be a session in itself, almost a training your elected officials type of session, but it is an art form. I believe and it really leads to the success of the people in our positions.
I sent the email to the chair of director school and told them they really need to do a 3-hour session on dealing with elected officials. That is one that I'm still working on now, but I'll tell you, I'm way more comfortable now than I was when I first took the job. And someone said something to me that I initially took as an insult, but after they explained, I'm like, it makes sense. Someone called me a master manipulator, and you almost have to, when you deal with 8 elected officials, you deal with 8 different personalities. Then you have a city manager that you have to be able to deal with who reports to those elected officials, but then you get those calls from those individuals. Learning their personality, learning what their triggers are has really helped me navigate through. I go to every city council meeting, not because it's required, but because I need to be able to hear what are they passionate about and how can I use it to my advantage. And I hate to say this, hopefully none of them watch this, but we are in desperate need of some funding for trails. And recognizing that we have an avid runner on our council, was able to talk with him and say, hey, look, we actually do have a trail study. We just need to get it activated. How can we go about doing that? And, he took that and he ran with it. Now he's really helped pushing that to put some legislation to get some funding for us to be able to fund those projects. Recognizing that there are some things you got some people who are going to call and ask for favors, and making sure that you don't do anything unethical can be challenging, but staying true to who you are is always first and foremost. But I've learned using my city manager to help mitigate a lot of the things we have to deal with elected officials has really helped. Always keeping her informed. That's always good, because at the end of the day, I report directly to her. And when you learn those personalities, you learn those things, what you can say, what you can't say, and it's helped build those bonds.
I'll say, we're all subject matter experts, and man, does our industry love that term, right? And love to lean into it. And you want to have that credibility immediately with your city council. You want them to say, wow, this is Shane Mize, the subject matter expert. But trust from a elected official is not given, it's earned, right? And I think that's fair. A lot of these folks are in the elected official position not because they have some sort of higher desire to be a state rep or whatever. Some of them you'll see from time to time. A lot of them are just the bank president or the state farm agent or a house mom or whatever. They are in it because more likely than not, that city made them mad about something. There was a rezoning or street closures, or their kids at their school got, put in one district or instead of another. And that is what prompted them to look up and see city government as something they need to fix. And so they definitely view you as the subject matter expert, but trust has to be earned. And I try to stay on point. When I'm talking about playground replacements, I'm talking about equity and play value. And when I'm talking about programs and events, I'm talking about how we curate those experiences. And when they hear that and we hit the target, which is important, I say a lot, public service, if you live your life on the tip of the spear, blunt force trauma is a daily occupational hazard, right? I can be launched by my staff at the target and I can hit center mass and it's a great feeling, or I can fucking be 5 meters off and hit a rock, and I'm, blunted the hell up. And so it's one of those things that when you're in public service, the goal is to hit the mark, reiterate to council how you hit the mark, that it wasn't luck, that it was curated, that it was a dedicated team of people that cared about serving that community, and that's why you hit it. And if you can do those things, trust will be earned. And then you have the freedom to go in there and do some crazy off the wall festival or program or event, because they're like, yeah, this cat hits. We're not worried about that he's some subject matter expert, so we're trusting him. It's Shane, and Shane has had 4 years of sustained growth or success in this area, the events or whatever. So let's let him do this crazy event,
Yeah. Doesn't even matter what kind of pants he wears.
That's right.
Or if he wears pants
At all.
I think what you said earlier, Chris, about having to do a long-term session about dealing with elected officials is spot on. I will never forget when I was the director of Indian Trail, I had a few, but I had one specific elected official that, like, no matter what we put in front of them, it was always a no. Like, I could say, like, hey, I want to give away free ice cream that, like, doesn't even come out of the budget to kids to support, like, a fun day. It's sponsored. We have we're not paying for it. And he would say no. But the turning point of that, like, really showed that our team was making a difference in our community is when that elected official and others started voting yes for things. And it was something I'll never forget. And it was, to this day, like, probably one of the most rewarding things that I had accomplished in that job. Not that I would ever think about, like, okay, what do I want to accomplish? But that was awesome. Like, literally seeing a light bulb go off in their head at a meeting for 2 years when they would always say no to something, and then they started saying yes because they started seeing the impact. So with that, I got a couple, like, rapid fire questions for you. And first thing that comes to mind, but the first one is, what's been the most rewarding achievement in your career so far?
I don't know why this takes me back to Columbus, but I think for me, when we were able to pull off some particular events at an underserved rec center that had not received any attention, that was dilapidated, just didn't have the resources, and there was a fall festival that we had, and we brought hundreds out, and it was then where I'm like, hey, this is where you truly can make an impact. I'll say personally, When I obtained my CPRP, that was a major milestone for me, different than a lot of others, because a lot of people don't know this, but I did not have my degree for a long time. I started working full-time immediately out of high school. So I was working in full-time in Parks and Recreation, trying to climb the ladder, and getting that CPRP really helped show that, at the end of the day, I might not have the degree at that particular time, but I have the credentials to show that I'm an expert in this field.
Okay.
So those are two I would share.
Jay, can we jump in? I love these games.
No,
So,
go for it.
all right.
Hey, you inspired this to some degree. So
Yes. All right, Chris, biggest challenge.
Biggest challenge is understanding golf operations. We have a golf pro who sometimes he walks a thin line between taking advantage of a situation and exploiting my me not having the knowledge that I need to have, and really being passionate about something. So really understanding how golf works.
Okay, here's my rapid fire question. What was one risk in your career, so it's got to be Park and Rec related, that you talked yourself out of that you wish you would have took?
There was an opportunity that I was a job offer that came up in Maryland, the state of Maryland, that I declined. And I always wonder what if, because I see this particular agency doing some great things, and I always just wonder what if I would have took that job. Happy where I'm at.
Right.
that's cool.
Yeah. Is it one of those alphabet ones in Maryland? They got like about 12 initials. Is that the one you're thinking of?
Actually, it's not.
Okay.
It's not. I'll share it. Baltimore.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Baltimore. Yep.
Chris, I think, I've been to some of your sessions and they've done a few on programming. I think at heart, your programming is a passion. What's been your favorite program that you implemented at any point in your career?
My favorite program. So I'm gonna give you a program and an event. I did a program called Shark Tank Teen Edition.
Okay.
Where we teach young kids how to be entrepreneurs, and we had a panel set up where they had to go in and ask for money to fund their business endeavor, and it was a really good turnout. And an event, we did a thrift shop fashion show, and we partnered with Goodwill. We were in a low income community where they just they didn't have money to go to the fancy malls, and we had Goodwill come out. They did a fashion show. We had models from the high school, and they really did a great job displaying what you can get from Goodwill.
Awesome. Okay, I got one more, unless the other guys got one. We talked earlier about hiring and, making sure you get the right fit. What's the one attribute that you look for in a person when you're hiring someone, regardless of the position?
Passion. You cannot teach passion. You to truly get the best out of a person, they gotta be passionate about what we do and be a true public servant. There's no credential for that.
Chris, you got any? We haven't done a lot of this, but I was on a similar kind of show like this that actually was just reversed, where there was one host and three panelists, and one of the tasks that we were given as a panelist was to spotlight and highlight one up and coming professional that we're around on a regular basis. So just giving you an opportunity to, and I know this is tough, just to single one person out. We didn't prep you on this, but give a shout out. Who's someone that's up and coming that the Parks and Rec world is going to know about soon?
Man, that is a hard question. And I think of individual here in our department. Man, this is going. I really don't want to say anyone in my department. Like, well,
you don't want us to take them,
right? Look, I can tell you. I'm gonna say the person, but I have a great team. They are all great,
gold medal worthy team, right?
Exactly.
There you go.
That's right.
But there's one professional that we have who her name is Shahara Thrasher, who is really moving up. She's been in the field for a while now, but in the past year or so, she's really starting to be more active on the national level. She is a true passionate employee. She goes above and beyond. Now, she's helping in different operations of our department. You talking about capital projects, our capital accreditation. She helped, lead those efforts. So she's doing so much now. And she does a lot of behind the scenes work for some national organizations, even with the Ethnic Minority Society. She does a lot of behind the scene work that a lot of people don't know about, So she's definitely up and coming.
So
I can tell you,
Oh, go ahead.
let me just add one thing about her. So you may not know this, but Tom, you know the name. She was on our Zoom call last week.
Yep.
So she is an Academy winner this year. And I've actually been paired as her buddy. So I've had 2 different private Zoom meetings with her. And she's been an absolute pleasure to get to know. And I definitely can see what you're talking about and just the conversations I've had with her. She's been fantastic.
She's a great professional to work with.
Okay, the last rapid fire question here. So we talked about how our field, we're open to close. We're dang near 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So it's tough for us to always cut it off because there's always someone that could call and say the pool's broken or the irrigation line is popped at the ball fields or whatever. But how do you cut it off? What do you do to separate and to get a little time where you're not thinking about being the director of the department?
I love this question because I have been having a hard time trying to get back to me. I feel like since I moved to Douglasville, I just have not been able to get back to me. So I'll tell you, I love 2 things. I'm a big time WWF fan, and I emphasize the F because
before they went to the E. Yeah.
Right. So watching old on Peacock, they have all these old wrestling videos, all the old WrestleManias and things like that. So that's one way I completely disconnect. And then, Tom, you'll love this one, the Braves games. I am right down the street from Truist Park, so I can always go and get a cheap ticket and just the atmosphere of the Braves. And it always helps that we're a winning team. So
baseball's boring, so I don't want to hear anything about baseball. Although going to a game is way better than watching it. But I want to hear about your WWF. Who is a wrestler from years ago, not one that's current now, that if they're on Peacock, you've just lost an hour. You're like, oh great, I was fixing to go to church, but now, Junkyard Dog or Macho Man Randy Savage or someone.
Yeah, how far back we talking, Chris? We talking? You talking 2000, early 2000s? Or are you talking before that?
I can actually go back to all the way from Hulk Hogan and Yokozuna. I can go as far back as there, but all-time favorite, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
I was just about to say that was my heyday. Was Stone Cold?
I loved him.
Rock.
I'm sorry with the
Texan now. Texan.
Look,
that's awesome.
Really quick, I just have to say that, and Chris knows this, I'm a huge Braves fan, and I am so jealous of the fact that you are as close as you are and first place in all of baseball right now, Chris.
That's it. And we're ready to sweep the Mets. So
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. Man, I think at some point every child was or is a massive wrestling fan. I know I was. Sounds like you guys were too. So it brings back some memories. I remember going when they were in Buffalo when I was in high school. I went to a couple like Thursday night Raws, and man, those are nights that I won't forget. And Stone Cold was one of my favorites as well.
Yeah, I'm showing my age because I actually love the Flyers. So Flying Brian, Coco Beware, Superfly Jimmy Snuka, those guys that would climb to the top rope and just risk it all. Back in the day, man, I loved those guys. Probably because I could never do that.
Well, see, and to me, the reference of that, like going off the top rope in my age was the Hardy Boys. Those 2 brothers, man, they were crazy, always doing backflips, going just tag team, going off the top rope like crazy. So that's fun.
It's funny you say that everybody's gone through that probably at some point. Not everybody, but this is obviously a big passion of Chris's, and it brings up memories to me. I think it's oddly inherent in our DNA. I don't know, just hear me out on this, but my son's 3, never has watched wrestling, and I'm telling you, he goes off the top rope at least once a week. He's standing on the ottoman and I'm laying down. We're trying to calm down, and the next thing I know, I get an elbow right into the chest. I mean, it's something that's we're born with.
You're onto something, and it's guy or girl. So my wife is the oldest of 8, Hannah, and so we have a bunch of nieces and nephews, and we do Camp Mize. They come up, we see different ones every couple of weeks, and we have some coming up this weekend, and we'll put a mattress down in this living room, and these kids, guys and girls, they will just inherently, just on instinct, climb to the top of these couches and jump off on themselves or someone that's sitting around them, and that'll be all weekend for them, just climbing up on something and jumping off onto somebody. Yep.
Awesome.
Real quick, what's crazy now is they've started creating a lot of these documentaries, telling the stories, and which I love. But as a kid, you think all this is real. You think that the Undertaker really was buried alive.
That's right.
And to hear them tell the stories, it's crazy. So yeah, that does consume a lot of my time now.
Well, hey, Chris, this was an absolute pleasure. I'm so glad you could join us. And I look forward to seeing you, as I always do, at conference. I'm sure Shane and Tom feel the same way. As the countdown's officially begun, we're under 2 months now until we get to Dallas. So we'll see you in a few months, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for coming, Chris.
Take it easy.
Thanks, buddy. We'll see you soon. That couldn't have been a better ending. So Shane, kudos. I guess that's 2 weeks in a row now. Shane asked the question of the week, but I didn't know where it was going, where he was you never know where someone's gonna go with that question about what they're doing to disconnect. But did that not just spur an awesome conversation? I'm grinning. The listeners can't see this, but I'm grinning ear to ear just because we just had that conversation about wrestling, which I haven't had a conversation about in years.
I have not talked about, thought about, or watched wrestling in probably 20 years.
Yeah.
So that definitely is a cool conversation to have, and brings back memories.
It's funny because I've got 2 teen boys, and mine are much older than y'all's. And there were a couple years that when the WWE came through Houston, I would take them, and we would get nosebleed type seats, and I'd get them the T-shirts or whatever they wanted, and I barely even knew the wrestlers they were talking about, and that they were excited about. But to actually have a conversation where I thought about a wrestler I enjoyed watching, back in the day. It's been 15 or 20 years, but that was really fun.
Awesome. Well,
Chris
guys,
was great. That was a great pool, Jay.
Yeah, Chris is always, he brings different dynamic to it. I've always admired his passion, and I've learned a lot from him. And I don't see him too much, even though he's only a few hours away. But I always look forward to catching up with him at conference. And we're now on a couple committees together with Capra, and I think that he brings a great dynamic to that too. And I thought of him recently because I'm working with his staff as the buddy, and I'm like, oh, Douglasville, Chris would be a great one to have in this conversation. He knows all of us, and he's taken similar paths. Been a YPN recipient, been Academy recipient for the extern, all these different things, and always just think he'd be a great pleasure to talk to.
Yeah, he's flying through the profession. He is certainly a star, and it's just something. If you are in Dallas, or even if you're not, I know we say this about a lot of our guests, that's going to probably become a reoccurring theme, but look him up. Chris is an open book. Great resource.
Yeah, and good luck to him and his whole team for that gold medal. What a prestigious award to be up for a young professional. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's excellent. Well, that'll wrap up another episode of RecLess. As always, thanks, guys, and looking forward to talking to you both soon.
Great job, Jay. Good job. Good seeing you, Tom.
All right, same guys. Have a good one.
Guys.